In this video, I'm going to show you how to create your own prefabs. Now, this is a really simple process. If you already have some objects in your hierarchy that you're ready to turn into a prefab, this goes really quick. What I'm going to do for organizational sake is I'm going to, well, first off, I've got a little animation curve in here I'm going to nuke out because we don't need that. I'm trying to keep things organized. Let's create a brand new folder here inside our project, which I will call My Prefabs. So I'll press F2, and we'll call this My Prefabs. Inside of this, I am going to create my first prefab. Now, when you first create a prefab, like so, I just go into Create, click on Prefab. This is a lot like creating an empty game object. The two have a lot in common. This prefab currently has nothing inside of it. It is just kind of an empty container waiting for you to drop some game objects into it.
Right. And if you look closely at it, if you look at the icon that's representing it, it is a gray color. This means that this prefab is empty and contains no information in it whatsoever.
So let's say we want to take our camp, which is sitting here in front of us, all of the stuff that makes it up, the couple of benches, the fire pit, the tent, and we want to turn this into a prefab so that we could either use it someplace else in our level, or maybe even save it for later. We could, export it out to a package even, and so that other people could use it.
Right. Let's say you were working on another game later down the road, and you go, I remember that one game I was playing around. I had this little campsite all set up, and it's like, I'm going to go back and get that. And if you've already exported it as a package, you can bring this into any other game that you want. And this setup will be already there with your tent, your benches, your little fire with sound, light, and animation on the light. It's all packaged together in one single unit. So by creating a prefab to hold all this information together in one single object, a prefab if you will, you can easily drag that into any other scene in any other project that you happen to be working on.
And we'll talk about actually exporting this out into a package in another video. For now, let's just say we want to take our camp and turn it into a prefab. So I'm going to grab the parent object, which is currently kind of it's our master, if you will, and I'm just going to drag this onto our new prefab. As soon as I do this, a couple of things happen. First off, our little cube goes from gray to blue, and you'll notice that our camp now turns blue. Now we're going to talk about exactly what that means and how we can utilize that in the next video. For now, I'm just going to take my new prefab, select it, press F2, and we will rename this camp, like so. And now we have a prefab that contains all of these objects. So that's a really quick look at creating prefabs. Is there anything else you want to throw in, Lee?
The one thing I'd like you to look at is look at the transforms.
Mm-hmm.
The transforms of our new prefab are memorizing their current location. So because you've created a prefab based off of objects in the world, they're going to remember that location. So every time you bring them back, they're going to default to the location at which they were when you created that prefab.
Right, so if we drag this into the hierarchy view of a brand new level, they would pop up at this exact location.
Right, but what we can also do is if you want to zero this out so your prefab always comes in at the world origin, with your prefab selected in the project, you can actually zero out all the positions and the rotations. And now your prefab is going to come in at the location of world, and I'll demonstrate this in the next video. But what I want you to note is even though our prefab is now set to come in at the world origin, our instance, which is in the world, which we use to create that prefab, is still maintaining its position in our current scene.
That's right. So great. That's a great example of how we can choose whether or not to store the location in which we had created our prefab. So that is going to wrap things up for this video over creating prefabs. Thanks a lot.